Hi, thank you for joining us. My name is Sean Marshall, representing Rix Forensica. We've got the honor today to introduce you to Mr. Paul Myeza. He's the CEO of Line of Africa Life Assurance, which we'll refer to in the rest of the conversation as Lion Life. Sir, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Sean.
Fantastic. Been a lifer in this game, right?
Oh yes, 30 years. 30 years.
30 years. Wow, that's an impressive career in this industry. Tell us, how has the industry changed? I mean, from 30 years ago to today, how has things changed?
Well, look, as the old saying goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So, I mean, from a demographics point of view, South Africa is still South Africa.
Sure.
The sort of channels that people purchase through are still the same, and the products that they lean towards are still the same. But from an industry point of view, the servicing of policyholders, that's fundamentally changed in what we do behind the scenes. I mean, from an underwriting point of view, I started as an underwriter, and going from receiving application forms from branches nationally. Now you just imagine from a timing point of view. Application form completed in a branch eventually has to get to a provincial head office, get into an underwriting queue, get underwritten, and then we request medicals.
Wow.
Right? Then we request, because that's our job as the underwriters, right? We ask for medical requirements all the way back to the branch, then back to the client. The intermediary has to get back to the client. Doctors. So you realize that if there's medicals involved, this thing could take weeks.
Oh my word! So onboarding wasn't a couple of hours or 2 days or 3 days.
No, it could literally be weeks. Wow. And obviously that has changed in an instant. I mean, in '96 when we introduced the imaging system, that was a big game changer. First of all, we could now centralize our underwriters, our branches, the sales branches throughout. Somebody didn't have to drive around with application forms in their boot for a week.
For sure.
And then go and submit them into an office. Everything was scanned and could be done instantaneously. You could ask for those requirements instantaneously. And then furthermore now, in terms of medical records, I mean, the medical data that's available, you can underwrite most of the underwriting without having to make somebody go for physical medicals in this day and age.
Yeah, for sure. Data is the new gold, they say.
Absolutely.
And that's the important thing. No, it's a blast from the past. I mean, I can remember in '97 when the first digital cameras came out. They were this big, and we were running around on accident scenes with these big cameras. So yeah, fair enough. So today we want to focus more about the industry. I think there's a lot of mention in media about the big hype cases around fraud, murder for money and those kind of things. The fact of the matter is, I think those instances are on the smaller percentile of things, So what I'd like to ask you is, what emerging trends in the insurance fraud has Lion Life identified over the past few years, and how are these trends influencing your approach to fraud prevention and claims management?
Yeah, no, I agree with you in terms of the high-profile kill fraud, as it's referred to. Of course, it's high-profile. Of course, it makes the news, and it is I suppose, the most despicable type of fraud. But I agree with you that's, whilst those are vitally important, there's lots of other fraud going on behind the scenes, which is because even if you are a fraudster, you can only kill so many people before
you get caught.
Exactly. So, I mean, ID fraud obviously has always been a big issue.
Yes.
ID fraud has always been a big issue, and the change from the green barcoded ID to the card ID is supposed to be more secure, but there are lots of stats that are showing that it was much easier for the syndicates to actually manipulate that form of ID. So once again, maybe the green coded, and not to say that you need to stick with that. We need to move forward. But some things.
Every new technology has a learning curve, right? You only learn with time where the weak points are and those kind of things. So fair enough.
Then you have something called BI fraud. there's a form called a BI 166. It's a notification of death.
Okay.
It's a notification of death. It's a form that's completed. Now that form is completed by an undertaker. It's completed by a doctor. There's various categories which notice, just time of death, cause of death, etc., etc.
Yes.
So there's a category called BI fraud where those forms are manipulated.
Wow.
Because the information on that form is the fundamental starting point of where do you go with this thing.
Yes.
Are there any anomalies?
Yes.
Is there anything to question?
Sure.
Undertakers can complete that form. As I say, doctors can complete that form, and syndicates know. And that's data comes into play again. In this modern era where keeping track of via Insurance Crime Bureau and other databases, then you get to identify where you see a link between certain undertakers, certain practitioners, and then the intermediary that was just involved in the original sale of the policy.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's BI fraud, as we talked about, kill fraud and ID fraud. I mean, those are the big issues. And of course, the ghost issue has always been a big issue. South Africa is big on and I guess because of the population register.
Okay, yeah.
Because of the population register or challenges with the population register makes it far easier to create these ghosts. We've got challenges with the population register. We've got foreign nationals, documented, undocumented. You've seen it just now, the Stilfontein situation.
Yes.
I can't remember the last count, how many people they brought up there.
Correct.
But I still can't make sense of it when they discuss in the news. Okay, what is the situation? Who are foreign nationals? Who are documented? Who's not documented?
Exactly.
So you can imagine syndicates can see the gap.
I mean, the last statistic, and I don't know how outdated that is. Foreign undocumented nationals in the country is something like 7 million. So all of a sudden that just describes, if you talk about our population is 64 million and you talk about 7 million undocumented foreigners, that creates a big problem at the end of the day. And again, I think we rely as an industry, when we talk about fraud mitigation and those kind of things, there's so many different parties that we depend on and so many pieces of evidence that we need to grab from everybody to make sense of this whole picture, and obviously certain areas is more, the data is more trustworthy, where other areas you need to take a long, hard look at the data and follow up on that information, And therein lies the problem, I guess, as well, and not taking a stab at anybody, resources, government resources and those kind of things,
Absolutely.
Making an inquiry on the form, as you mentioned, it's not pick up the phone, get an answer, and let's move on, it does talk about that. And then, from you mentioning 30 years ago to today, customer expectation.
Right.
It's vital. I mean, clients today want answers immediately. Absolutely. They want results immediately. Exactly. So it puts us as an industry kind of on the back foot, because all of a sudden we have to do what we need to do to mitigate risk, but still look after the majority good clients that's got good integrity and obvious honest losses.
That's exactly it. But you also touched on different role players that are involved in the process, right?
Yeah.
So I mentioned the forms. So you've got a death certificate. You've got that BI form which I said is a notification of death, right?
Yes.
In an accidental death, then you've got a police report, right? And then you have affidavits, right?
Yeah.
Now you've got 4 different. Then you've got the insurance company at the end of the chain. Now the insurance company is looking at all these documents and through a certain lens.
Yes.
Right. The undertaker gets this form. He's got to fill in his section.
Yes.
He's not looking at the same lens.
Exactly. Yeah. He's not looking holistically at all the data together.
That's a dead person.
Yes.
You want me to fill in this form? Yes, dead. Yeah. What else must I say? Right? Absolutely. I don't understand your context of why. Right? And then there's the medical practitioner.
Yeah.
Right? The medical practitioner. Now I've got to. I declare the person dead.
Yeah.
And then also on a death certificate.
Yes.
Now we get death certificates with natural causes, unnatural causes.
Yeah.
Now you can understand from a doctor's point of view, is okay, look,
Yes.
I don't need to be telling you all sorts of other details.
Yes.
It wasn't it was natural causes, it was unnatural causes. Now, from not even just as an underwriter's point of view, but also as a layman's point of view, I ask myself, so what's
Natural.
unnatural? I say,
Yeah.
well, on the one hand, it's natural to die because we're all going to die.
For sure.
So then every death is a natural death. So how does that help me?
Yeah,
that doesn't distinguish.
Yes, correct.
Because we're all going to die. So, and now that you don't understand that I actually wanted some more information out of this thing.
Yes,
because
correct.
I wanted to understand the circumstances and the context so I could make an assessment.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So, with all intents and purposes, and with all due respect, you've told me nothing.
Yes, correct.
Right? But everybody's now filled in their document and they've done their part.
Right?
Correct. Then you've got an accident report. You know. Now the police must fill in an accident report. And again, I don't understand the context.
Yeah.
I don't understand how insurance policies work.
Correct.
And how important it is.
Yes.
I mean, you've got on accident benefits, you have policies that have double death benefit because of the accident.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Yes.
I don't know that. There's waiting periods.
Correct.
You understand that this thing is fundamentally important because from an underwriting perspective, that it cuts out the waiting period.
Yes.
So the implication of what you put on this accident report, it's as far-reaching consequences. But if I don't know that and I don't know what you want with it,
correct.
You said it's an accident report. I said, okay, well, they crashed into each other at the stop street.
Yeah.
There you go.
End of story.
There's your report.
And I think what we mentioned, and I'm circling back to, the murder for hires and those kind of things, although it is the minority, the good thing about it is it's creating a spotlight all of a sudden on the fraud in this industry and, what's going on. And I think there's a lot more we can do about communication, educating clients and those kind of things. Off record, me and you had a conversation about, sometimes people are involved in activities that they actually don't understand or they're not aware of any better. What they perceive they're doing is okay. They don't know of any better.
They don't know they're contributing to something that's untoward.
Yeah, and especially I think if you bring that syndicate into the equation, all of a sudden, he's going to be the spin doctor. He's going to tell you a story that you want to hear, that you need to hear, and those kind of things. So, our perception sometimes that the insured is the person that, is committing this. Sometimes he's also being part of the bigger scam and being duped into this, And I think that not enough people realize how many people are using their identity for the wrong things, and we see that across the board from insurer. But let me move on. Let me ask you the next question that I've got listed here. What are some of the key challenges Lion Life has faced in addressing insurance fraud? And how has these challenges shaped your strategy and operations over the years?
Well, one of the challenges, and again, I've talked now in our previous segment about different parties having different interpretations of things or different understanding of why things are required.
Yes.
But if you look at funeral policies themselves, one of the issues is the disconnect between the industry, the design of policies.
Yeah.
Now it's quite simple. It's a funeral policy. It's simple.
Yes.
You've got a death benefit, and you add one or two people, so it's done.
Yes.
And then you have rules, right?
Yeah.
You have rules that are embedded in there.
Okay.
And some of these rules not necessarily align to the ethnic and cultural understanding of the people who take out the policies.
Correct.
Right?
Very, very important point here.
So, simple things like familial relationships. Okay?
Yeah.
Now you design a policy that says you can put in you, wife, and children, biological children. And brothers, sister. Oh, okay. But it's a very different context.
Yes.
It's vastly different in different cultures. Who's my brother? And who's my sister? And who I refer to as my sister? And who I, who I refer to as my child.
Yeah.
And this causes, because somebody's buying a product, understanding that, okay, thank you, you said I can cover these people.
Yes.
And I have.
Yes.
Then you come back and tell me that.
That's not my understanding of the interpretation of what you mean.
And in fact, your interpretation, I don't even know what you're talking about. Actually, to be quite frank.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that causes a conflict. Absolutely. You have age-old rules like if insurance, all the insurance funeral policies were designed with, certain context that you insure the child, and when the child turns 21, then the child is off the policy.
Correct. Right? Yeah.
Now that's from a more Western and upmarket understanding that, okay, your child turned 21, I've given you a key, and we've had the 21st, and therefore you're off to fend for it. Right?
Yes.
That thing has always caused a problem in the industry, because I mean, whose child turns 21 and they say happy birthday to you, and by the way, let's go cover the policy.
Yeah, correct.
What are the chances of that?
Absolutely.
So that thing is always teed up for a problem, because inevitably at some stage down the line, and then to make it worse, of course, is that other than what's called the accident hump, in other words, that is the mortality spike between the ages of 18 and 25.
Okay.
Just purely because people are out and about doing the things that cause accidents.
Yeah.
But other than that spike, there's no logical reason to go for that cohort of people and say that you must remove them off policies.
Yeah.
Because I could get it if you're cutting it off at 65, because that's when the mortality curve absolutely
goes
spikes.
Absolutely up. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, it was just an example of the things that lack of understanding, and as a result, when we delve into claims, I'll talk about it as well. But we talk about anti-selection.
Yeah.
We talk about material non-disclosure. Then we talk about insurable interest.
Yeah.
The familiar relationships coming into that.
Correct.
That's a bridge too far.
It is.
Having those conversations, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah. The problem always with financial services and financial products in general is just the gap in understanding of what the insurer sees and obviously what the policyholder understands from it, and I think that will be an ongoing thing. The funny thing about what you mentioned about 21, I mean, I'm not going to say anything about any specific generations, but these days it's norm for kids to stay in the house for much longer than what they used to be.
Absolutely.
When we grew up at 18, our parents kind of told us, you're on your own. But these days, that's no longer the case. So I can appreciate the confusion in there.
So now, if you look at that confusion and that disconnect, and particularly the anti-selection, material non-disclosure, etc., there's a gap for syndicates.
Yeah.
I know you don't know what you're buying, and I know that you don't know what you're selling in.
Exactly.
There's a good gap.
Like the niche.
There's a good gap. From a mitigation point of view, I mean, that's one of the reasons why you see funeral parlors still being such a big channel in terms of funeral policy sales. Because they design products that are actually culturally relevant and actually even community relevant.
Yes.
And so you'll see, you can go to funeral parlors in different areas of the country and even in different areas of the province.
Yeah.
And you'll see how different their products are.
Yes.
Because they actually design the products for the people around them.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why they're still such a big channel.
Yes.
Because the people can actually see, this guy actually he understands my family structure.
He understands the regional cultural difference from the rest of the country.
Exactly. And he's selling me actually what I actually understand his language. I understand what he's selling me. So that's why that is, that is such a big channel. That's why even things like burial societies still prevail against massive insurance brands.
Yeah.
They prevail against massive insurance brands because hold on, this thing is designed by us for us.
Yeah.
Understanding who we are. So as I said, so that is one of the things. Supporting those channels is important.
Yeah. Supporting
those channels is important because then you and fraud is now there linking to fraud as well. Coming back to data and the modern era, forensic service companies like yourselves, have been a big leap, for us in the industry, right? Because I mean, you can now link that data. I've just mentioned how the funeral parlor is very relevant, but at the same time, the funeral parlor can be a gateway to the syndicate too. Because
exactly
because the parlors have big books of business.
Yes.
So there's But in the modern era, and with the assistance of forensic investigators, and when I say investigators are like not going out, yes, there is investigation.
Yes, sure.
But in the modern world, you can do investigations without non-intrusive.
Yes.
Behind the scenes, using data, as opposed to going out and harassing people.
Yes, correct.
Right? So, I mean, if you can link the funeral parlor's claims experience, and you know where they're underwritten, how long have they been underwritten somewhere? What is the claims experience?
Correct.
You know, what are their spikes?
Yeah. And you're raising a lot of a very important aspect here, which we also touched on earlier on, and I know I'm going a bit off script here, but I want to unpack that because, you know, especially the game in funeral, if you talk about fraud in the funeral game, your turnaround times on claims processing, the cost of investigation, you know, because forensic services isn't a cheap thing. So it doesn't make financial sense that you have the resources on each and every claim, right?
Absolutely.
But what you mentioned and what I hear you say and what we discussed in a bit more detail is, how do you have an approach to leverage data, tools, systems, and those kind of things in the background to make sure that you can obviously flag potential risk claims and then have a look behind the scene. You know, it doesn't need to be a harsh contact point. It's not a full contact sport. So look at it from the background. And I agree, rather focus your time, energy, and attendance on synergies of looking for syndicates, specific players involved. Who's the doctor's names popping up? Who's the funeral homes? You know, who's the individuals and those kind of things, regions and stuff like that. So it's becoming much more data centric, involved investigation than on the field. Am I understanding that correctly?
You've hit that spot on. That's the focus, not chasing kids who turned 21 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
You know? So, and just to unpack what you've said now. So, and why, as I say, these forensic investigation services have been an important leap for us in the industry, right? Because one, let's say even if it was viable to send out full-on investigation for every claim. Let's leave the financial aspect of it for now. But as I've said, the nature of the target market versus what you're going to investigate. Now you're going to the target market and you're having conversations about, as I said, insurable interest, material non-disclosure, anti-selection. That's a bit of a way. You're not going to find each other. The person you now you're going to spend time trying to decide whether you actually understand what each other is saying before you can actually investigate. But then over and above that, you're also going to harass the large majority. And we forget. We look at these high-profile kill for insurance cases. The vast majority of people are just normal, law-abiding human beings. All they did was apply for a funeral policy. They paid their premium, and somebody's passed on. They don't need to be harassed. Right?
Correct.
So using the data points and being specific and doing that takes that out of it. But secondly, it takes the speculation out of it. You know, I've spoken to claim staff when we were introducing these forensic services. And I said to them, listen, you're going to sit there, yes, you're experienced claims assessor, but now you're staring at this piece of paper and you're saying, I don't think they're related. But you have no facts. And you have no evidence. It's you and your intuition sitting there saying, I don't think they're related. I said, no, so now you've got two choices. You're going to sit and stare at this one piece of paper for the rest of the day, trying to make up your mind of whether they're related or not. And then eventually you decide they are related and maybe you're paying a fraudulent claim. Or you decide they're not related and then you just upset a valid policyholder.
Correct.
Can we leave that out of it? Can we just actually do the forensic check behind the scenes and get the facts? Right?
And what can you substantiate? That's the most important thing,
And by getting the facts, that means we didn't have to talk to the fraudulent person. We can just come back and tell them, by the way, you're not related. Now we've got facts.
Correct.
Done and dusted. And the person and the genuine customer was never ever affected. Right?
Absolutely.
And you go into the types of and for it also means you prevent, right? You prevent. I mean, we've seen on repeat occasions where one claim is flagged, and then it's scanned against our policyholder base.
Mm.
And the person that's been flagged, or the ID number that's been flagged, or the cell phone number that's been flagged, or the parlor, they start popping up, whatever, and then we're able to go and proactively, because now basically you've got a fraudulent policy with us.
Yes.
So, do you want to wait until somebody dies that we have this conversation, or can we have this conversation now?
And I think that's the key thing. If you talk about forensic services and those kind of things, I think we've always said that you need to move this kind of services more up the value chain, closer to underwriting and in between that stage to identify. And it comes to data. I like what you're saying there again, because these policyholders, I think there's a tendency sometimes from some underwriters, okay, we wrote the policy up. Now it's lying dormant and we'll deal with it when a claim gets registered. When a claim is registered, then we jump up and everybody's, getting involved in those kind of things. If you really want to make a meaningful impact at a cost-effective rate, you need to utilize data, tools, and those kind of things to scan your current base and identify potential patterns, potential syndicates, and those kind of things there. Because number one, you have got the time there. No losses occurred yet, so you're not under the gun of a 24 or 48 hours or whatever the case might be. And secondly, you can do, again, like you said, background checks and on the back end have a look and those kind of things. Because I think that's the thing. You're not going to win this war by taking out the individual fraudulent person and those kind of things. That needs to happen with awareness and those kind of things to make people aware of what they're doing. But if you can get the syndicates, because they're the ones I believe is bleeding us dry.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that's hurting us. So if we can get that right. I'm going to take a break just there, guys. We do have this as a 4-part series, so please tune in for the follow-up with our guest speaker. We'll take a break quickly.